park, Sora had seen many strange things in her years she had studied creatures with 6 hearts. She had examined aliens who breathed liquid metal. She had written papers about species that could live for 1,000 years, but she had never seen anything quite like the fear in the eyes of the delegates. The diplomatic station Aegis Prime floated in the darkness between 3-star systems. It was a place where different species came to talk, to trade, and to make peace. Sora had arrived 2 days ago as part of the human diplomatic team. Her job was simple. She was supposed to study and help the ambassadors understand their biology. But tonight, at the formal gathering in the Great Hall, she found herself studying something else entirely. There were tall beings with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy. Their civilization was old when humans were still learning to make fire. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had weapons that could burn entire cities in seconds. And yet, as Sora watched them from across the room, she saw something that did not make sense. They were afraid. 3 delegates stood in a corner, speaking in low voices. Their translator devices were turned off, but Sora had spent years learning alien languages. She could catch pieces of their conversation. She moved closer, pretending to examine the artwork on the nearby wall. "The humans want to discuss the border agreement," one delegate said. "We should give them what they want." "We cannot show weakness," another replied. "Our people will not accept it. Our people will accept anything that keeps us away from another war with the humans." The third delegate's voice trembled slightly. "You were not at Crimson Pass." "I was." Sora's interest sharpened. She had read about the Crimson Pass in history files, but the details were always unclear. It had happened during the Human War 15 years ago, some kind of last stand that helped turn the tide of the conflict. "We do not speak of Crimson Pass," the first delegate whispered harshly. "Perhaps we should. Perhaps our young ones need to understand what humans are capable of." The third delegate paused. "I watched him for 9 days. 9 days he stood in that pass, and we could not move him. We sent our best warriors. We sent our death singers who can kill with sound alone. We sent wave after wave of soldiers. He killed them all. One human. One human, he bled. We saw him bleed many times. We shot him, cut him, burned him. But he did not fall. He would not fall. Every morning we expected to find his body. Every morning he was still there, waiting for us with those terrible eyes." Sora felt a chill run down her spine. She knew about human endurance. Her research focused on it. Humans were persistence hunters. They could keep moving long after other species collapsed. They could ignore pain that would drive other beings insane. But what the delegate was describing seemed impossible even for a human. "What was his name?" the first delegate asked, his voice barely audible. The humans called him the Unyielding. We had different names for him, names I will not say out loud. The delegates fell silent, lost in memory. Sora stepped away quietly, her mind racing. She spent the rest of the evening observing every time a human walked past them, she saw the slight tension in their bodies. Every time a human laughed too loudly, she saw them flinch. An entire species of conquerors, and they were scared of humans. No, she corrected herself. They were scared of one human. That night, Sora returned to her quarters and began her research. She accessed every file she could find about the Battle of Crimson Pass. Most of the information was classified, but she found enough to piece together the story. 15 years ago, they had invaded human space. They had expected an easy victory. Humans were young, their technology was primitive compared to weapons, and they had no experience fighting a war across star systems. But they had made a mistake. They had underestimated what humans could endure. The Crimson Pass was a narrow valley on the planet 3. It was the only route to the main human settlement on the planet. If they took the pass, they would have a clear path to kill thousands of civilians. The human military was 3 days away. Someone needed to hold the pass until they arrived. A captain volunteered. His squad of 30 soldiers went with him. By the second day, only was left alive. Sora read the reports with growing disbelief. They had sent hundreds of soldiers through that pass, killed them with guns, with knives, with rocks, with his bare hands. When he ran out of ammunition, he used the weapons of his fallen enemies. When those broke, he made traps from the bodies of the dead. He did not eat, he barely slept. He bled from dozens of wounds, but he kept fighting. On the 9th day, human reinforcements finally arrived. They found standing among the bodies of over 300 soldiers. He was covered in blood, most of it not his own. He had 17 broken bones. He had lost so much blood that doctors said he should have been dead twice over. But he was still standing, still watching the pass, still waiting for the next attack. The report said he collapsed the moment he saw friendly faces. His body had been running on nothing but pure will, and when that will was no longer needed, it finally let go. Sora sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. This was not just a soldier. This was something else, something that aliens across the galaxy told stories about in the dark. She understood now why they were afraid. It was not because of human technology or human numbers. It was because humans could produce people like. She had to know more. She had to understand how a single human being could do what he did. Was it biology, training, something else entirely? Her scientific mind demanded answers. But there was another feeling too, something that was not scientific at all. She wanted to find this man. She wanted to see for herself if the legend was real. Sora opened her personal terminal and began searching for any information about where might be now. The reports said he survived the war. They said he received every medal humanity could give. They said he refused all of them and disappeared. Whispers, that was all she could find. Whispers of a man who took impossible jobs on the edges of known space. Whispers of a ghost who appeared when things were most desperate. Whispers of someone who had become more myth than man. Sora made a decision. She would find him. She would study him. She would understand what made humans capable of such things. She did not know that this decision would change everything. She did not know that the whispers would lead her to places she never imagined. She did not know that the legend of was only the beginning of a much larger story. All she knew was that somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between the stars, a man had refused to fall, and she had to know why. The mining colony of 7 was not on any tourist maps. It was a dirty, dangerous place where people came to work, to hide, or to disappear. The air smelled like metal and sweat. The lights were always too dim. The people never smiled. Sora pulled her hood lower over her face as she walked through the narrow streets. She had taken unauthorized leave from the diplomatic mission. Her superiors would be angry when they found out, but she did not care. 3 weeks of searching had led her here, to this ugly rock floating in the middle of nowhere. She was looking for a man named Wu. The information brokers on Aegis Prime had given her his name. They said knew everything about everyone on this side of the galaxy. They said he used to fight alongside during the war. They said he was the only person who might know where the legend had gone. They also said he did not like visitors. Sora found the cantina at the end of a dark alley. It had no sign, no windows, and a door that looked like it had been kicked in several times. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was full of smoke and shadows. Aliens of different species sat at small tables, drinking and talking in low voices. A few humans were there too, rough-looking men and women with hard eyes. Everyone turned to look at Sora when she entered. She was obviously out of place. Her clothes were too clean. Her posture was too straight. She looked like exactly what she was, a scientist who had wandered into the wrong part of the galaxy. She walked to the bar and ordered a drink she did not plan to finish. The bartender, a large man with scars on his face, studied her for a moment before sliding a glass across the counter. "You are looking for someone," he said. It was not a question. "Woo," Sara replied. "I was told he comes here." The bartender's expression did not change. Lots of people look for, most of them leave disappointed. Some of them do not leave at all. "I am not here to cause trouble, I just want to talk." "Everyone says that." Sora reached into her pocket and pulled out a data chip. She placed it on the counter. "I am a researcher from the Korean Stellar Research Division. I study human physiology. I have information that might interest him." The bartender looked at the chip, then at her. Something shifted in his eyes. He picked up the chip and disappeared through a door behind the bar. Sora waited. Minutes passed. The other customers went back to their drinks and conversations. She began to wonder if she had made a mistake. Then a voice came from behind her. "You came a long way to find a ghost." Sora turned. A man stood there, thin and wiry, with gray streaking his black hair. He had the look of someone who had seen too much and forgotten how to be surprised by anything. His eyes were sharp and watchful. "Woo?" she asked. "That depends on who is asking." He sat down on the stool next to her and ordered a drink. "You want to know about everyone does these days. His name comes up more and more. The aliens talk about him like he is a demon. The humans talk about him like he is a saint. Neither is correct." "What is he then?" Was quiet for a moment. He took a sip of his drink. "A friend, at least he was, back when both of us were still young enough to believe in things like friendship." "The stories about Crimson Pass, are they true?" "Which parts?" "The part where he killed 300 enemy soldiers by himself, true. The part where he held that pass for 9 days without sleep, also true. The part where he did it without fear," shook his head. "That part is a lie. He was terrified every single moment. He told me so himself afterward, but terror did not stop him. Nothing has ever been able to stop him." Sora leaned forward. "I do not understand. How is that possible? Human bodies have limits. We can push through pain, yes, but there comes a point where the body simply shuts down. No amount of willpower can overcome that." Smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You scientists always want explanations, numbers, data, but some things cannot be measured is one of those things." He paused. "I was there, you know, at Crimson Pass, not in the fighting, but I was with the rescue team that came on the 9th day. I was the first one to reach him." "What did you see?" "A man who should have been dead, a man who was more wound than flesh. A man who looked at me and said before he collapsed, "Are the civilians safe?" That was all he cared about. Not his medals, not his glory, not even his own survival, just the people behind him, the ones he was protecting. Sora felt something tighten in her chest. This was not what she had expected. She had imagined a monster of war, a killing machine that did not feel pain or fear, but was describing something else, something more human, not less. "Where is he now?" she asked. Studied her for a long time. Why do you want to know? You are a scientist. What could you possibly want with a broken soldier? Broken. The war ended but never stopped fighting. He could not. Some men learn to put down their weapons, only knows how to pick them up. Finished his drink. He takes jobs now, the worst ones, the ones nobody else will touch. Rescue missions in enemy territory, defense contracts for colonies that cannot pay. Anything where he can stand between danger and innocent people. He is not looking for money or fame. He is looking for something else. What? I think he is looking for a death that means something. He survived when everyone else died. He cannot forgive himself for that. So he keeps putting himself in impossible situations, hoping that this time he will not walk away. His voice was heavy with sadness. That is what the legend of the unyielding really means. He is a man who has forgotten he is allowed to stop. Sora was silent, her mind was racing. Everything she thought she knew about was changing. He was not a Superman, he was not a monster. He was a person carrying a weight so heavy that it was crushing him slowly. "I need to find him," she said finally. Raised an eyebrow, to study him, to write papers about his interesting physiology. No, Sora was surprised by her own answer. "I do not know why, I just know I need to see him, to understand." For a long moment said nothing. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the counter between them. "Before," he said, "a frontier colony on the edge of human space. They have been under siege by raiders for weeks. They sent out a distress call. No one answered except one person." Sora picked up the device. The screen showed coordinates and basic information about a small farming colony. "He is going there. He left 3 days ago. If you hurry, you might catch him before the fighting starts, or you might arrive just in time to see him die." Stood up from his stool. "I hope you find what you are looking for, scientist, but be careful. The truth about is harder to accept than the legend." He walked away without looking back. Sora sat alone at the bar, staring at the device in her hand. She thought about her research, her career, her safe life on clean space stations. She thought about the fear in the eyes and the sadness in his voice. She thought about a man standing alone in a mountain pass, waiting for death to come. She made her decision before she even realized she was making it. 2 hours later, she was on a transport ship heading for 4. The journey would take 4 days. She did not know what she would find when she arrived. She did not know if she was ready to face it. But she knew she could not turn back now. The whispers had led her this far. She would follow them to the end. 4 was burning. Sora saw the smoke rising from the colony as her transport ship descended through the atmosphere. Black clouds drifted across green farmland. Buildings that had once been homes were now piles of broken stone and twisted metal. This was not just a raid. This was destruction for the sake of destruction. The ship landed in a field outside the main settlement. The pilot refused to go any closer. He took Sora's payment and left as quickly as he could. She did not blame him. The sound of explosions echoed in the distance. The air smelled like fire and fear. Sora had registered herself as a medical volunteer before leaving Seven. It was the only way she could get transportation to a war zone without raising too many questions. Now she walked toward the colony, her medical bag heavy on her shoulder, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. The outer walls of the settlement had been breached in several places. Colonists with makeshift weapons guarded the gaps, their faces pale with exhaustion. They barely looked at Sora as she passed. They were too tired, too scared, too focused on staying alive. Inside the walls, the situation was worse than she had imagined. Hundreds of people crowded into the central square. Families huddled together on the ground. Children cried while their parents tried to comfort them. Wounded men and women lay on stretchers, waiting for treatment that might never come. Sora found the medical tent and reported for duty. The head doctor, an older man named Bay, looked at her credentials and nodded. "You picked a bad time to volunteer," he said. "The raiders attacked again this morning. They have been hitting us for 3 weeks now. Our supplies are almost gone. Our defenses are falling apart, and the nearest Terran military base is 5 days away." "Why are the raiders doing this?" Sora asked as she began unpacking her medical supplies. "What do they want?" "Everything, food, equipment, ships, and they want us to suffer." His voice was bitter. "They are pirates who got too big, too organized. They hit colony after colony, take what they want and burn the rest. Nobody stops them because nobody cares about frontier colonies like ours." Sora spent the next several hours treating patients. Burns, broken bones, wounds from shrapnel and gunfire. She worked without stopping, her hands steady even as her heart ached. These were farmers, teachers, children. They had built lives on this distant world, and now everything was being taken from them. As night fell, she took a short break outside the medical tent. The fires on the horizon had died down, but she knew the calm would not last. The raiders were gathering for another assault. Everyone could feel it. That was when she heard the whispers. At first, she thought she was imagining things, a murmur passing through the crowd, a word repeated over and over. But as she listened more carefully, she realized people were talking, spreading news, sharing hope. "Oh, he is coming. Are you sure? Someone sent a message. He received it. He is coming." Sora moved through the crowd, listening. The whispers grew louder, more excited. People who had looked defeated moments ago now stood. Parents wiped their tears and told their children that everything would be okay. "Who is coming?" Sora asked a woman standing nearby. The woman looked at her with wide eyes. "You do not know," the unyielding. Someone reached out to him and he answered. Sora felt her breath catch in her throat. He was really coming. The legend was about to become real. But not everyone was hopeful. She heard other voices too, quieter, more uncertain. "One man cannot stop an army. They say he walked through plasma fire. Is that even possible? He is just a soldier. How can one soldier save us? I heard he does not feel pain. They say he is not fully human anymore." The whispers painted different pictures of the same man, a hero, a monster, a ghost, a savior. Everyone had their own version of. Sora wondered which one was true. She returned to the medical tent as darkness settled over the colony. The wounded kept coming. A young boy with burns on his arms, a grandmother who had been hit by falling debris, a farmer who had been shot trying to protect his crops. Sora treated them all, her mind divided between her work and the whispers she kept hearing. Around midnight, the raiders attacked. The sound was terrible. Explosions shook the ground. Gunfire crackled in the air. Screams rose from the outer walls. Sora kept working, but her hands trembled now. The tent shook with each blast. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They are breaking through," someone shouted from outside. The people started running. The wounded who could move struggled to their feet. The wounded who could not begged for help. Chaos filled the square. Sora stood frozen, not knowing what to do. Then the whispers came again, but this time they were different, not hopeful, not afraid, something else entirely. "Oh, he is here. Well, he came. Now look at the breach, look." Sora pushed her way out of the medical tent. She followed the eyes of the crowd, all turning toward the largest gap in the wall. The raiders had blown it open just minutes ago. Their soldiers should have been pouring through, killing everyone in their path. But they were not. The breach was blocked by a single figure. Whispers of his name filled the room. Then she spotted him. Was not what she had expected. In her mind, shaped by stories and legends, she had imagined a giant, a warrior built like a mountain, with muscles like stone and eyes like fire, the kind of man who could kill 300 enemies and not even breathe hard. The reality was different. He was lying almost thin, average height. His hair was black, streaked with early gray. His face was lines cutting across his cheek and jaw. He wore old armor, patched and repaired many times. In his hands he held two weapons, one blade and one gun, both looking as worn as their owner. He looked tired, he looked human. He looked like someone who had been fighting for too long. But he also looked like someone who would not move, not one step, not for anything. The raiders hesitated. Sora could see them through the gap in the wall, dozens of them, armed with advanced weapons, ready to slaughter everyone in the colony, and they hesitated because one man was standing in their way. He did not shout threats, he did not give speeches. He simply stood there watching them, waiting for them to make a choice. His silence was more terrifying than any words could have been. One raider, braver than the rest, raised his weapon and fired. Unmoved. Sora had studied human reflexes. She knew the limits of human speed, human reaction time. What she saw should have been impossible. Dodged the shot and closed the distance in heartbeats. His blade moved in a blur. The raider fell. Then everything became chaos. The raiders charged. They had numbers on their side, overwhelming numbers. Any normal person would have been killed in seconds, but was not normal. He fought with a precision that was almost mechanical, each movement perfectly calculated to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. He shot one enemy while cutting down another. He used bodies as shields. He never stopped moving, never gave them a clear target. And when they did hit him, when bullets tore through his armor and blades cut his flesh, he did not fall. He bled. Sora could see the blood, red and human, dripping from his wounds. He was hurt. He was in pain, but he did not stop. He could not stop. He had placed himself between the colony and destruction, and nothing would move him from that place. The colonists watched in silence. Even the children stopped crying. They were seeing something that most beings in the galaxy would never see. They were seeing a human who had decided that he would not lose, not tonight, not ever. Sora stood outside the medical tent, her heart pounding, her eyes fixed on the figure at the breach. She had come looking for a legend. She had found something more. She had found a man who was terrified and exhausted and wounded and still fighting. A man who proved that humanity's greatest strength was not power or speed or technology. It was the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. The night was far from over. The battle had just begun. But as Sora watched hold the line against impossible odds, she knew one thing for certain. The whispers had been right. He was everything they said and more. The night became a blur of blood and fire. Sora lost track of time. She moved between the medical tent and the battlefield, dragging wounded colonists to safety, treating injuries that would have killed anyone without immediate care. Her hands were covered in blood, her clothes were torn and dirty, but she kept working because stopping meant giving up, and nobody in this colony was giving up tonight. Not while he was still fighting. Held the breach for 2 hours against waves of raiders who kept coming, kept dying, kept coming again. Sora caught glimpses of him between her trips back and forth. Each time he looked worse, more blood on his armor, more cuts on his face, moving slower but still moving, still killing anyone who tried to pass. The raiders eventually pulled back, not because they were defeated, but because they needed to regroup. They had expected an easy victory. They had not expected this. In the brief calm that followed, Sora made her way to the breach. She needed to see him up close. She needed to understand. Sat on a pile of rubble, reloading his weapon with hands that shook slightly. Bodies surrounded him. The ground was dark with blood. He looked up as she approached, and for a moment their eyes met. His eyes were tired, so tired, but there was something else in them too, a fire that refused to die. "You are the doctor," he said. His voice was rough, damaged by smoke and exhaustion. "I saw you treating the wounded." "I am." Sora knelt beside him, opening her medical bag. "Let me look at your injuries." "Later, they will come again soon. You are losing blood. If you do not let me treat you, you will collapse before they even attack." Smiled. It was a small, sad smile that made him look older than his years. "I have heard that before, many times. I have not collapsed yet." "There is always a first time." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Quick then, we do not have long." Sora worked fast. She cleaned his wounds and applied emergency bandages. The injuries were bad, deep cuts from blades, holes from bullets that had punched through his armor, burns from energy weapons. Any single wound would have put a normal person in a hospital, had dozens. "How are you still conscious?" she asked as she worked. "Your blood loss alone should have killed you." "I do not know." His answer was honest. "I never know. I just keep going until I cannot anymore." "The call you the unyielding. They tell stories about you to scare their children." Laughed quietly. It was not a happy sound, though I remember them. "They sent their best warriors to kill me. They failed." He paused. "I do not feel pride about that. I feel nothing at all when I remember it, just emptiness." Sora finished the last bandage and sat back. "Why do you do this? There must be easier ways to live. You could retire. You could find peace." "Peace," he said the word like it was from a foreign language. I do not know what that means anymore. I knew once, before the war, before Crimson Pass, but that person died a long time ago. What is left is this. He gestured at himself, at the blood and the weapons and the scars. This is all I know how to be. That is not true. You chose to come here. You chose to protect these people. You did not have to do that. Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. There is a girl in the medical tent. I saw her when I arrived. Small, maybe 7 years old. She has burns on her arms. I treated her. Her name is... Repeated the name slowly. I had a sister once. During the war, they attacked our home world. She was just a child. I was supposed to protect her. His jaw tightened. I failed. Sora felt her heart break a little. She understood now. She understood why a man who had nothing left to prove kept throwing himself into impossible battles. You came here because of her name, she said quietly. I came here because I could not bear to let it happen again. I could not save my sister, but maybe I can save all of them. He looked toward the colony where hundreds of people waited in fear. That is why I do this, not because I am brave, not because I do not feel pain. I feel everything, every wound, every death, every failure. But the pain of doing nothing is worse. The pain of watching innocent people die while I do nothing is worse than any bullet. Sora did not know what to say. She had come looking for a legend, a superhuman who the limits of biology. Instead, she had found this. A man held together by wounds and will. A man who fought not because he was unbreakable, but because breaking was not an option he could accept. Before she could respond, shouts rose from the wall. The raiders were coming again. Stood immediately, all signs of exhaustion hidden behind a mask of focus. He checked his weapons and started walking toward the breach. Stay in the medical tent, he told her without looking back. More wounded will come. Wait, Sora grabbed his arm. How will you do this? There are too many of them. You cannot hold them off forever. He finally turned to look at her, and for a moment, just a moment, she saw something beneath the mask. Fear, real human fear. He was terrified. He knew he might die tonight, but he was going anyway. I do not need to hold them forever, he said. I just need to hold them until help arrives. 5 more hours, that is all. 5 hours is a lifetime. Then I will live a lifetime tonight. He pulled his arm free gently. Thank you for the bandages. Now go save lives. I will buy you the time to do it. He walked away into the darkness. The second attack was worse than the first. The raiders had learned from their mistakes. They came from multiple directions, hitting the walls at different points. The colonists fought back with everything they had, but they were farmers, not soldiers. They were losing. Sora worked in the medical tent as the battle raged outside. She treated wound after wound, patient after patient. Her supplies ran low. Her energy ran lower, but she kept going because was out there keeping his promise and she would keep hers. Hours passed, the attacks came in waves. Each time, Sora expected to hear that the walls had fallen. Each time the colonists held on, and always in the worst places where the fighting was hardest there was. She saw him once near dawn when she stepped outside to get fresh air. He was fighting at the north gate, which had nearly fallen. 3 colonists lay dead behind him. Dozens of raiders lay dead in front of him. He was covered in so much blood that she could not tell where his wounds ended and his armor began, but he was still standing, still fighting. A raider got through his guard and stabbed him in the side, grabbed the blade with his bare hand, pulled it out of his body, and used it to kill the raider who had stabbed him. Sora had studied human limits for years. She had written papers about what the human body could and could not do. Everything she knew said that should be dead. But everything she knew was wrong. As the sun rose over four, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, the raiders finally retreated. They had lost too many. They had gained nothing. And somewhere in the distance, sensors detected approaching ships, Terran military vessels answering the distress call at last. Help had arrived, had bought his 5 hours. He had bought more than that. Sora ran to the north gate. She found him there, standing among the bodies, staring at the rising sun. His sword had broken at some point. His gun was empty. He swayed on his feet like a tree in a storm. "It is over," she said. "They are coming. We are saved." He turned to look at her. His face was pale beneath the blood. His eyes were unfocused, but he smiled, that same small, sad smile. "Good," he whispered. "That is good." Then he collapsed. Sora caught him before he hit the ground. He was heavier than he looked, or maybe she was weaker than she thought. She lowered him gently, cradling his head in her lap, shouting for help. "Stay awake," she told him. "Do not close your eyes. Help is coming." "I know," his voice was barely audible. "I just need to rest for a moment." "You can rest later, after I save your life." He laughed weakly. "Save my life. People usually run the other way." "I am not people. I am a who traveled across the galaxy to study you." "Study me?" His eyes flickered with something that might have been amusement. "What have you learned?" Sora looked at him, at the scars and wounds and broken body that had somehow done the impossible, again and again and again. "I learned that legends are wrong," she said. "They make you sound like a god, but you are just a man." "Just a man," he closed his eyes. "Yes, that is all I ever was. And that is why you are incredible." She was not sure if he heard her. His breathing had gone shallow, his body finally surrendering to its injuries. But as she held him there, waiting for the medical team to arrive, she thought she saw his lips curve into one last smile. Just a man, but what a man he was. Sora did not leave his side for 3 days. The Terran military ships had brought doctors, supplies, and soldiers. The raiders were hunted down and destroyed. The colony was saved, but none of that mattered to Sora as she sat in the crowded medical bay of the military cruiser, watching fight for his life. The military doctors had never seen anything like it. 37 separate wounds, 4 broken ribs, internal bleeding in 3 places, blood loss that should have killed him twice over. They said he would not survive the first night. Then they said he would not survive the second. By the 3rd day, they had stopped making predictions. "His body just keeps going," one doctor told Sora in disbelief. "Every time we think he is about to fail, something kicks in and pulls him back. It is like his cells refuse to give up." Sora was not surprised. She had seen what he could do. She had watched him hold a line that no human should have been able to hold. Of course his body would not stop fighting now. That was not what did. On the 4th day, he opened his eyes. Sora was there when it happened. She had been sleeping in a chair beside his bed, her head resting on her arms. A small sound woke her, and she looked up to find him watching her. His eyes were clearer than they had been on the battlefield, still tired but aware. "You stayed," he said. His voice was weak, barely a whisper. "I told you I would save your life." Sora sat up, her heart racing. "You owe me now." He tried to laugh but winced in pain instead. "Fair enough. What do I owe you?" "Answers. I came all this way to understand you. The least you can do is let me ask questions." Was silent for a moment, then he nodded slowly. "Ask." Sora had prepared 100 questions, scientific questions about his physiology, his recovery rate, his pain tolerance, questions that would help her write papers and advance her research. But sitting there, looking at the broken man who had saved an entire colony, she found that those questions no longer seemed important. "Why do you keep fighting?" she asked instead. "You could have died 1,000 times. You have given more than anyone could ask. Why do you not stop?" And turned his head to look at the ceiling. His expression was difficult to read. "I told you about my sister." "Well, yes. When she died, I made a promise, not to her because she was already gone, to myself. I promised that I would never let it happen again, never let innocent people die while I could do something to stop it." He paused, "But the truth is more complicated than that." "Tell me." "After the war, I tried to go home. I tried to live a normal life, but I could not. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, my squad, the soldiers who died at Crimson Pass, the enemies I killed, the people I could not save." His voice grew quieter. "The noise in my head never stopped. The only time it stopped was when I was fighting, when I was protecting someone, when I was standing between danger and innocent people." Sora felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. "So you keep fighting because it is the only time you feel peace?" "Yes and no." Turned to look at her again. "I keep fighting because I do not know how to do anything else, because the person I was before the war is gone and this is what remains, but also because somewhere deep down I still believe. I still believe that one person can make a difference, that standing up matters even when you know you will lose, that hope is worth fighting for even when hope seems foolish." "Oh, that sounds very human." "That is because I am human. That is all I am. The legends make me sound like something more, but they are wrong. I feel pain, I feel fear, I feel despair, but I also feel love. I love the people I protect, even though I never know their names. I love the idea that somewhere, because of what I did, a child will grow up safe. That is what keeps me going, not strength, not courage, love." Sora reached out and took his hand. It was covered in scars like the rest of him, but it was warm and it squeezed hers back. "The sent a message," she said. "They learned about what you did here. They are afraid of you, but they also respect you. They have a new name for you now." "What is it?" "The burden bearer. They say you carry the weight of your species on your shoulders, and you never put it down." Smiled. It was a real smile this time, not sad at all. "That is a better name than the unyielding. I like it." They sat together in silence for a while. Outside the medical bay, soldiers and colonists moved about, rebuilding their lives. The crisis was over. A new day had begun. Finally, Sora spoke again. "What will you do now, when you recover, I mean?" "The same thing I always do. Find the next place that needs help, the next colony under attack, the next group of people who have been abandoned by everyone else." He squeezed her hand. "What about you? Will you go back to your research?" Sora had been thinking about that question for days. She had come to Four as a scientist looking for data about human physiology. She had found something else entirely. She had found purpose. I am not sure, she admitted. Everything I knew about my work seems small now. I spent years studying what makes humans special, writing papers about our endurance and our recovery rate. But being here, seeing what you did, I realized that none of that captures the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that humanity's greatest strength cannot be measured. It is not about how much pain we can endure or how fast we heal. It is about choice. We choose to stand up when falling down would be easier. We choose to fight when giving up would make more sense. We choose to hope when hope seems impossible. She looked at him. That is what makes us special. That is what the aliens will never understand. Nodded slowly. You should write that in your report. The fancy scientists might not believe it, but it is true. Sora laughed. Maybe I will. 2 weeks later, she returned to the diplomatic ship. Her supervisors were angry about her unauthorized leave, but the military's report on what happened at Four made it difficult to punish her too harshly. She had saved lives. She had witnessed history. They settled for a formal warning and let her return to her duties. But Sora was not the same person who had left. She could not go back to writing dry papers about human biology. She had seen too much. She had learned too much. She requested a transfer to the Frontier Medical Corps. It was approved 3 days later. Before she left, she sat down at her terminal and wrote one final entry in her research log. It was not the scientific report her superiors wanted. It was something else, something true. Humanity's greatest adaptation is not strength or speed, she wrote. It is not our ability to endure pain or recover from injury. Our greatest adaptation is the inability to abandon hope. We are not the fastest or the strongest beings in the galaxy, but we are the ones who refuse to stop trying, and in the end, that makes all the difference. She saved the file and closed the terminal. Then she began packing her things. 1 month later, she received a message on her personal communicator. It came from an unregistered source. The message contained coordinates to a small moon on the edge of human space and a single sentence. There is a village that needs a doctor. Interested. Sora smiled as she read the words. She recognized the handwriting in the tone. It was him, still out there, still fighting, still protecting the helpless. And she thought about the safe career she was leaving behind, the research, the recognition, the comfortable life on clean space stations. She thought about everything she had sacrificed to follow the whispers across the galaxy. Then she thought about a man who had refused to fall, a man who stood alone against impossible odds because he believed that one person could make a difference. A man who was not a legend or a myth, but something better. A human being. She typed her response without hesitation. I am on my way. Some stories end when the hero saves the day, but the best stories do not end at all. They continue quietly in the spaces between stars. They continue in the hearts of people who choose to stand up when the universe tells them to stay down. Was not done fighting, and now neither was Park Sora. The whispers of his name would continue to fill rooms across the galaxy, but now they would be followed by new whispers, whispers of a scientist who left everything behind to follow a legend, whispers of two humans who proved again and again that hope was always worth fighting for. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a man and a woman walked together into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. Together,